1370 WOCA.
Ocala.
All right, 25 minutes before 10 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. I don't want to tell you something that's going to bring you down, but what I'm about to tell you, I want to tell you, but not to bring you down. I have a friend, a longtime friend I grew up with in New York, and maybe it's less than 6 months ago he lost his wife, and so he has a, what do you call those things, a third wheel, whatever you call it? Fifth wheel, a trailer, in other words, and he went to one of the RV parks over at Lake Rousseau, and I knew he was over there, and I was keeping up, it's only like 25 miles away, so I knew I was keeping up with him on Facebook, and he's got a dog. So he had his dog Patch with him, and I could tell he's just such a great guy, and they were just such a great couple. But it was so sad that because I remember when his wife was first diagnosed, and it took about a year before the cancer finally took her. And I'm not telling you this to bring you down. I'm telling you this to introduce you to our next guest, because what Gary is his name, and what he told me, cause we went to see him over at the trail at the RV park, and unfortunately he left. We tried to surprise him. I didn't know when he was leaving, so he left apparently like 3 hours before we got there. Yeah, and I didn't know he had left. But anyway, but I was following him, and he said on the phone, I said, we just missed you or whatever. He said, it was the greatest week. He said, I was able to just sit there and look out on the water, and I went fishing with some people I don't even know, and I was thinking, so many times in our lives, we don't really spend time with just ourselves. We're so busy with everything else, and ego is such a part of being a human being. It's an interesting element of us. Our next guest has written a book that is short, and it reminds me, not the storyline, but it reminds me of Jonathan Livingston Seagull, in that Jonathan Livingston Seagull was a short book that made a big impact on me. This book does the same exact thing. This is the shortest title, by the way. It's called I, or One. If you actually read the book, you figure out it could be either or. Dr. Jeffrey R. Fidel has written the book. He is a board-certified MRI fellowship-trained diagnostic radiologist, a classical pianist, which I think this is more about the creative part of his brain than the medical, the scientific part. He was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. He's going to tell you that he gave up on the medications, and oh my gosh. The book is called I. The subtitle is One MD's Inward Journey to Liberate Himself from Mental Suffering and the Help It Offers for Those Diagnosed Bipolar, Mentally Ill, or Depressed. JeffreyFidelMD.com is the website. Good morning, Jeffrey. Dr. Fidel. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Hi, Larry. How are you? Hello, Robin.
Good morning.
Hopefully you didn't fall asleep with my long intro.
No, I was enjoying it, actually.
Yeah, I like the book because, you're really talking to... we all have questions about God, and we all have questions about ourselves, and I think some of the answers that you've come upon, I think more people would agree that they've gone in this direction. You know what? We fight things sometimes. We fight obvious things, but I think you've stated some obvious things.
Well, the things weren't obvious to me until now, but in the end, it's our minds that can create our own suffering, and it can create an immense amount of suffering. So this is what I've discovered in myself, that all the suffering that was ever created was my mind's own creation.
Yeah. Okay. So, if I said it was obvious, maybe I should have said it should have been obvious. I look at dogs all the time. I love dogs. And they seem to live life just so freely, and just, they don't care. Hey, I'm not supposed to poop here. Why not? Yeah. They don't care about ego. They don't throw parades. They don't put themselves on the cover of magazines. Right? They're just living, right?
Well, that's exactly right. They're not questioning their existence. They're just being the existence itself. When we stop asking the question, then we get to see what's right before us always, and that's the life.
I just get off those railroad tracks. That train sounds awfully close.
I didn't know it when I bought the apartment that I was this close to that. But
Where are you? Where are you calling from?
I am in Boynton Beach, Florida.
Oh, okay, not too far from here. So thank you for being on the air with us.
Well, it's really a really heart-wrenching story that you have about your journey, because you didn't know about yourself until you were diagnosed, even though you are a doctor.
Well, up until the point before I took the inward journey, my concept of self was like a thought-based identity, because self is a thought. When we think of ourselves, that's what we're doing. We're thinking of ourselves, and we're creating a self. When we think, we say, "Oh, well, this is me.
Right.
What I do." Now, that's an egoic self, or that's a thought-based identity. But after the inward journey, I learned myself to just be a part of everything that I see around me. And this was all taught by the teachings of the Douching that I utilized to do this inward journey, because the Tao enabled me to connect with my heart, and that the heart is kind of like the universal intelligence that knows itself to be a part of all that is.
Yeah, we're all part of something bigger than us, but at the same time, we're the only ones living our experience, our own experience. There's nobody else living my experience other than me, and same thing with all of us. It's just, it's kind of a fascinating topic to pursue, and you've almost done it in a poetic way in the book.
Yeah, well, that's right. Each person is their own awareness. So basically, when we're all asleep, that's when we're at peace, so to say, and then we wake up, and then our minds say, "Whoa, we're here." So we form that awareness, and that's what each person has. We're just that awareness, and then we go back to sleep, and all is peaceful again. And so when we wake up, our minds can create a suffering for ourselves, and that's why most people are at peace when they're asleep, or when they get put under anesthesia, and then they wake up, and then their mind starts to create suffering by identifying with the thoughts in our mind, and that's kind of the problem.
Unless you can somehow separate yourself from that, and it sounds like that was the awakening for you, was being able to separate yourself from whatever hold ego has on you. And so I have a question, but first I want to make sure I was right with what I just said. Does that sound true to you?
Well, it's just to flip it's a very simple flip. Instead of we are who we think we are, we're just the beings that think. Because thinking evolved to help us, not to create our own suffering. So if we see ourselves as just human beings that happen to have evolved to think, then all human beings become the same, because now we're all just beings walking around with the ability to think. Rather than the way it is right now is that people think that they are this, and that can create separation, because then someone can think that they're different than another person, when really we're all the same.
Yeah.
And that's very hard when you are a couple, you're part of a family, because you have to keep yourself as an individual, yet you have to keep yourself as part of the team. And that can be very taxing at times.
Yes, to modify, a lot of times we modify our behavior. A lot of it's subconscious, and this is what I was doing before throughout most of my life, was to modify my behavior to fit into a group, whether it be a family or, my job, for example. They're very subtle modifications of behavior in order to fit in or be accepted or loved by a group. So what the inward journey was kind of to find that love inside of myself, that I was missing because I was reliant upon obtaining it from society.
Right.
And the whole waking up part happened to me when everything in my life from outside collapsed, and then it was just me. So the inward journey was finding that love and acceptance inside of myself that I'd never had until I learned myself in this way.
That's interesting. When we in this business, this is the totem pole of showbiz, and we're at the bottom of the totem pole when you're in radio.
Yes.
But there is a commonality in showbiz, whether it's radio or movies or anything, that usually you find personalities. I don't know if this applies to me. Maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. But I've definitely seen it in other people. Who, when you hear their life story, you realize that they're in the business of show business, whether it's to act, and you can just listen to any interview of a star and realize they had something in their life that made them want to get this adulation from people they don't even know, and it somehow made them whole. And meanwhile, the love was always there, as you already said. If they had just looked inward, it was already the very thing they're looking for. It's like the Wizard of Oz. It's not really there. There's no real wizard.
Well, you're right. It's inside of every one of us, and what you said is true. Whether it be someone in entertainment or what have you, when we're born, we want to be loved and accepted. Period. End. And we can spend our lives trying to find that outside of ourselves, which many people do, myself included. But to find it inside of ourselves, this can also be done, and I think this is kind of where I'm going to try and step in and give people some of the things that I utilize in order to heal myself in this way.
And that leads perfectly to the question I wanted to ask you, is when this revelation happened for yourself, when you suddenly started thinking differently, how did you use that new observation of yours? How did that observation change you?
Well, it was actually the unlearning of myself that was the hardest thing, because what I did in the inward journey, it wasn't about thinking, it was more about non-thinking. And what that means is that I had to pretty much unlearn everything I knew from society as truth and start all over again. And this is actually not an easy feat to do, because that's essentially the inward journey, was going back to a blank slate once again and relearning it from scratch. And this is why I had to be in isolation for a long period of time, because I had to almost go back to the very core of who I was, which is in my heart, and then relearn society from scratch, which I basically had to do, because society is pretty much a learned behavior set, or a learned behavior system. Depending on where we grow up, that's, if I had grown up in Africa, then I would have learned those rituals, but I happened to grow up here in America, so then I learned these rituals. So
right.
really had to relearn the ritual system of the American society.
And when people are diagnosed with bipolar or depression or some other kind of mental illness, doctors usually prescribe some forms of medication, and that could be a hindrance sometimes. Is that right?
Well, what the medications are doing is, no person is depressed or bipolar or any. What these are their states of mind. They're cyclical, unhealthy thinking processes. So what the meds do is they numb the mind. It's kind of like alcohol or any other drug that one takes, with the benefit that, of course, with prescription meds, they kind of modify it that, of course, if people are walking around drunk all day, they can't really perform their job. So what the meds do is they allow the mind to be numbed without taking away the clumsiness that might be associated if someone were, drunk. Because before meds came out, alcoholism was prevalent throughout society. It's just that it's been put in a pill nowadays.
And so that's how you discovered the Douching. I don't know how to pronounce it correctly.
Oh, the Douching.
Oh, okay.
That's okay. Oh, that was just kind of by luck. Someone in my in the medical office happened to have that book, and I started reading it, and I didn't just read it, but I practiced it, and that was the difference. And that book is a guide of how to really go in and connect with the truest part of ourselves, which is in our hearts. And like I said before, in our hearts we know every human being to be the same. And that's kind of what the Tao teaches, is that we're all the same.
Do you think we create our own reality?
Well, this is what virtual reality is, so to say, and that's what the mind, the more, when we're in our other reality, so to say, or even when we go to sleep, we're in a dream, for example. That's our mind's creation of, and that's the power of the mind. It can create very powerful visual or auditory states. And that's the mind. So this is what's happening a lot in society. We're trying to create a reality that's different than the very reality that's always in front of us, and that's the moment of now, which is the only moment that exists. So when we can just bring our focus to the life that's always right in front of us, then we won't be as reliant on creating these virtual realities or other realities that our minds are trying to almost escape from the life that's right in front of us at all times.
When you are hanging out with little children, when you're a deep thinker, as you apparently are, do you ever look at children and think, oh my gosh, you don't even need to be a deep thinker. These children are so free, and that's where we all should be. It often occurs to me that maybe we just try too hard to be supermen and superwomen. Sometimes we should just be like children.
That's correct. When we're all children, we don't judge or we don't do anything. This is exactly what it is. Children are just that. They're what ideally we should be. Yeah. Young children just play together. They love each other. They accept each other for who they are.
Yes.
And then when they grow up, their minds unfortunately can be taught certain things that can show that somehow they're separate, but in reality they never are. And this is what we have to do, return to being children once again.
Our guest is Dr. Jeffrey R. Fidel. His book is called I. I'll just say I instead of one. You could look at it and wonder if it's I or one, and I'll let you explain why it could be either. We'll take a little break and be right back. Fascinating topic. This is The Source, WOCA, and gosh, we got a few minutes left after we come back, and we'll do that in a minute.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Safe boating is no accidents. Some fog patches early in this Monday morning. Otherwise, a warm day today with some sunshine and a high of 79 to 83. It'll be partly cloudy and mild for Monday night, lows ranging from 57 in some interior locations to 64 along the coast. Tuesday and Wednesday will remain warm and rather humid with intervals of clouds and sun each day. The high Tuesday 79 to 83, Wednesday's high 77 to 81. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Joe Lundberg.
Are you in need of custom screen printing, embroidery, or promotional items? Then look no further and come visit the brand new Legacy Team Sales. LTS is conveniently located off 17th Street next to Armstrong Homes in beautiful Ocala. We offer the best prices and highest quality products for your company, team, school, or nonprofit. Whether looking for screen printed shirts, embroidered polos, or travel team uniforms, you'll be sure to find it at Legacy Team Sales. Come visit our new 27,000 square foot facility. Our friendly and knowledgeable sales staff will assist you in every part of your custom purchase. LTS carries the hottest brands in the industry like Under Armour, Russell, Mizuno, Asics, Badger Sports, Gildan, Pacific, Ogio, and many more. At LTS, screen printing embroidery is done in-house and we guarantee customer satisfaction. Stop by, give us a call, or check us out on the web at shoplts.com. Remember the name, LTS.
Sunrise Automotive, this is Matt.
Hey, Matt, it's Dan.
Hey, Dan.
Listen, we're going to be doing some traveling, and the wife, of course, is going to be doing a lot of shopping. I need to make sure the car's in good shape.
Why don't you just bring it on by? Let us check it out. We can check all your belts, your hoses, your tires, all your fluids. In out of town, is that up north in the cold?
Yep.
Okay. Let's check your antifreeze. Also, let's make sure your washer fluid has got alcohol in it so it doesn't freeze up north, because that makes for a rotten day. And let's check your air pressure in your tires. Let's look at your brakes, make sure everything is safe and secure there. Let's go through it and just make sure everything is ready to go on the road. You due for an oil change?
Yep.
Whenever you come in to get your oil change, we always check your belts, your hoses, all your lights. We go through and make sure that everything is working properly. We check all your fluid levels. We do that every time you come in to Sunrise Automotive.
So just call you back at this number?
Yeah, just give me a call back at 690-1993 whenever you're ready to come in. And you can drop it off, leave it with us, whatever's most convenient for you. Look forward to seeing you at Sunrise Automotive.
Holiday cheer has arrived at Paddock Mall. This holiday season, shop Paddock Mall for all your favorite stores. Francesca's, White Barn, AE Outfitters, Victoria's Secret, K Jewelers, and more. Check out our new stores, Artsy Abode and Jimmy Jazz, as well as our seasonal favorites like Hickory Farms and Calendar Club. Stop by to see Santa in Center Court and capture a keepsake memory for your family with a variety of family-friendly events, entertainment, and opportunities to give back. Paddock Mall is your holiday headquarters. For all the season's details, visit paddockmall.com.
All right, 4 minutes before 10 o'clock. Gosh, when it's a good interview, it goes fast, doesn't it? And the book is little. It's called I. It's written by Jeffrey R. Fidel, Dr. Jeffrey Fidel, I'm sorry. And it explores so much in such a short period of time. So, Doctor, can I ask you a question? Had you had this revelation earlier in your life, would anything be different about your life?
I think that this revelation came about because of the circumstances. This is not something I voluntarily chose. Had not I gone through the divorce and the death of my dog and walking out on my job and throwing out my medications, I probably would have just gone on being a practicing physician and living my life in the Western way. Mm-hmm. So, there was nothing fun about doing this inward journey. But what I learned inside of myself is very important, and it's my goal now to share with other people that want to learn about their own selves. And it's basically reconnecting with ourselves once again. And this is what I'm going to be teaching, because we're all our greatest teacher, and this is what I found inside of myself when I listened to myself and I truly became who I was. Right. That's when the inner peace started to develop. And the more I listened to myself, listening to ourselves is just that. It's listening to our hearts, and that's when we're honest with ourselves.
My hunch is that the person who picks up this book and gets it has to be ready to get it. I don't think you could teach this to anybody and everybody at any time. They have to have reached a point in their life where this makes sense. Otherwise, they're not going to really get it. Their eyes are going to glaze over. They're not going to get it.
Yeah, like you say, it is a short book, and it could be glanced over, but it actually took me a lot of time to get it. It was 3 times as long, and I made it that short to make each little chapter kind of is very concentrated, so to say. So, words can only take a person so far, and it's kind of my goal now to guide people through some of the practices that I have done in order to heal myself from within.
And this does take a lot of discipline. So you are to be commended, sir, not just for you being able to take charge of your own life, but also to help others take charge of theirs.
Yeah, this is true. I mean, after enduring this amount of suffering, personally, I could only imagine there are millions of people right now locked up in hospitals, and their minds are creating such suffering for themselves. And I was in that state myself. So then I can, knowing that they're there, I'd like to reach out and help these people. But in the end, they're going to have to be the ones ultimately that are going to be their own healer. And I can't do that for them, but I can certainly show them everything that I've learned within myself.
Thank you for being on the air with us. How do we get the book? We got like 20 seconds.
The best way to get the book is on the website, jeffreyfidelmd.com.
Okay.
It's also on Amazon, and the best way to search for the book is, again, my name, jeffreyfidelmd.com.
Okay.
The name of the book is which is difficult to search. So, again, I recommend using jeffreyfidelmd.com or Jeffrey Fidel on Amazon.
Dr. Fidel, thank you so much for being on the air with us. We will take a break and be right back.
ExxonMobil chief Rex Tillerson, and it's already causing a stir.
There's skepticism among Democrats and Republicans who note Tillerson's business dealings with Russia, a nation the U.S. intelligence community believes worked to throw the election in of Mr. Trump. Republican Senator Marco Rubio tweeted about Tillerson saying, being a friend of Vladimir is not an attribute I'm hoping for from a Secretary of State.
Fox's Rachel Sutherland. Today, Mr. Trump tapped retired General John Kelly to head Homeland Security. The Golden Globe nominations are out, with the musical La La Land dancing its way into 7 categories, including Best Picture.
It's pretty strange that we keep running into each other.
Maybe it means something.
I doubt it.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Other Best Picture picks: Moonlight, A Lion, Hell or High Water, Manchester by the Sea, and Hacksaw Ridge. The awards ceremony January 8th. Fox News, we report, you decide.
Attention shoppers, modern life deserves a modern way to pay. Say hello to MasterPass. The